Hello, everyone. Welcome to the 180th episode of the Spiritual Brainstorm. Again, resuming my scribblings because this one is a very visual episode, and if I don't have the support of my scribblings, it'll be a bit hard to illustrate. So, the episode is about, again, solving this inside-out, outside-in kind of puzzle, inside-outside kind of reality. And it's linked to an episode I've done before, which was also about this inside-outside kind of thing, where I think I revisit, was it the one on Indra's net? And, this idea of being a perfect sphere where everything maps onto you. And I mean, you can look a few episodes back and you'll get what I'm talking about. So, in this episode, what I wanted to revisit is causality, linear causality, and this idea that things affect us from the outside in, that you have this, an event that hits you into your body, and then that reverberates or goes basically from the outside inward and inward, as in it changes the state of all of your constitutive parts. So obviously inside of you, you have little cells that are affected by outside events, and they need to change their state as a function of what happens on the outside. And then the molecules inside your cells have to change their state to reflect what was happening on the outside. And then the atoms within your body have to reflect what was happening on the outside, and then the little electrons and protons and quarks and blah, 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 blah. And to me, it just didn't make sense that causality, why would causality be, linear in the first sense? And also, why would it go from the outside in and not from the inside out? I mean, it just didn't make sense to me. So, remember the video that I told you that imagine that the universe is just a big pool of water, and then you have a dissociated little sphere there where its inner state, is a perfect reflection of the outer state. So the idea is, imagine if the boundary here of that little sphere is perfectly reflexive. It reflects everything, like a glass kind of ball or a mirror that is curved. That curved mirror maps every single point of information in the outer reality, maps onto that sphere on its surface. But you could say that it's basically its inner state reflects its outer state. Now, to understand that, imagine that this is actually water. And there's a kind of artificial boundary here between the inner vibrations or state of the water and the outer vibrations of the ocean, say. But ultimately, every single movement outside is also reflected on the inside and vice versa. And so the idea is that this is simultaneous. There isn't a directionality to this. It's basically things update themselves from the outside and simultaneously they update themselves from the outside. It is just that this distinction between outside and inside is just a matter of interface. So imagine if this little bubble of water, say, or droplet, just didn't know how to shift its inner state, and it used a projection of its inner state on the outside via an interface to modulate its internal state in specific ways. And so ultimately what you can see, the real evolution is just a self-contained, let's say that this is actually a photon, which is like a self-contained pocket of light or sound, actually, a self-contained pocket of sound, which is like a black hole, basically. So everything is a black hole. Black hole is a self-contained pocket of light. And then in order to shift its inner state, what it does is that it projects in a holographic reality around it what's inside of it, and then it can, whatever it does on the outside, is actually a way to manipulate itself on the inside, and those two are a mirror of each other. Because when you change something in your outer reality, you simultaneously change it in your inner reality. And this boundary is not a physical boundary, it's a cognitive boundary. It's basically, it represents the eternal present moment and experience. So, it's as if, whatever events are inside of you that work their way upward towards your level of reality, and whatever events that are happening on the outside that work their way towards this artificial boundary, working their way down, you could say, in a certain way, from descending from infinity into to your level. And here it's going upward from zero or nothingness up to your level. The moment where those two meet, they are a mirror reflection of each other, and that's your present experience that can no longer be changed, that you experience in that moment. And so, how do you represent that? It's a bit difficult, but let me try. So, first of all, remember that what I have said is that you have two extremes, zero and nothingness. In the middle, you have life. And then you have a mirror between different structures here. You have molecules or chemistry, planets, which are basically unconscious balls of molecules or chemistry, stars, atoms. So don't forget that initially the stars are made up only of a few atoms, and all of the other molecules are basically created from remnants of stars that explode. Then you have galactic clusters like Linacia, and here you have subparticles. Here you have quarks, and here you have galaxies. Oh, no, wait a minute. That was wrong. So subparticles this is galactic clusters, and this is galaxies. The hierarchy, of course. And then here you have photon or light. Here you have universe. Here you have vibrations. And here you have multiverse. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, with life being in the middle, which is kind of, it actually, this doesn't really count because it's at the center of these two, and that is the cognitive boundary. That is the cognitive kind of skin, let's say, for consciousness, where the reason there are 12 here is because there are 12 musical notes. And because everything is a vibration, then obviously everything will structure itself according to the vibratory nature of the universe. And the only way to arrange vibrations in a way that they don't interfere with each other is following the 12-note scale. And the ratio or the relationship between vibrations, between the vibration frequencies. And so you could have, there's a bidirectionality here whereby there is a flow of causality that is going from zero towards the cognitive boundary of life and then back towards zero, kind of a feedback loop. And on the flip side, there is the same here. There is events that are going down from infinity towards you and then up from you towards infinity. And these two are a mirror of each other. And so the thing is, what I mean here is, imagine if life is at the center and you have these cones that are going to that direction, coming down from infinity and up from zero. And this is life, or a living cell. And as it works its way up through all of the layers that I've proposed here, the quantum properties are becoming lower and lower. That is, the closer the event gets to you, the more certain it is that you're going to experience it in a certain way and that you can't escape it in the present moment. And the same is valid here, descending from infinity towards you. So when you have events that are happening at the level of galaxies or something, there's still so many different like timelines, dimensions, and things. So those events are not very certain that they will happen to you. But as they descend into your eternal moment, then they get closer and closer until they become unavoidable. And what you can do from this cognitive skin kind of perspective, the only thing you can do faced with present events is feel on the first hand, and second is react and then act. And what I mean by this is that these feedback loops are actually, they have various lengths. So what I mean by that is you can have a very, very short retroactive kind of loop, or you can have very big retroactive loops. And here it's the same, very short and very big. What I mean by very short, for instance, a car hurtles towards you and you jump to the side. Now, jumping to the side, that event, that decision, that reaction, first of all, you feel bad that a car is going towards you. You feel like this is not okay. Then you react to the car coming at you, which is you jump to the side. And then you act, which is, for instance, what you do afterwards. Once the action, once the thing that has happened to you, once it is past, then you can act on it, which is when your kind of future kind of expands again. So the feeling, your future is unescapable. You cannot help but feel what you feel in the moment. React, your potential future is a little bit wider. That is, you can let yourself be run over by the car, or you can jump aside. And so there is still a little bit of choice, but very little. And then when you act, that is after the fact, when your kind of future in the present moment expands again, which is there isn't anything urgent or pressing that you have to react to, then you can act on it. And again, these have different retroactive kind of feedback loops that are different lengths. So in terms of reaction, for instance, what I mean by that is that you give the instruction to your to jump aside, for instance, and that happens instantly, and your action on the outside is mirrored by the action on the inside, and both happen simultaneously. It's not a process of outside in. Now, most of you will say, well, that's ridiculous because you send commands through your brain to your body so that it moves aside and all of those things. But don't forget that when you're looking at your body, you're looking at this side of the equation. You don't have a view on the other side. You don't have eyes turned inwards to see what's happening. So you're seeing what's happening on this side of the interface and not what's happening here. And if you have instruments that are looking at this and that tell you that the influence is in this direction, it's because they are looking at the visual representation of these levels within an interface. So it's as if you were examining what a avatar in a video game is doing after all of it has been processed by the video processor, after all of that binary code has been processed, and then it displays that picture to you, which is here, and you have the illusion that it's the outside events that are affecting it, when in fact, both are happening simultaneously. That is, you have the reason why we have foreknowledge is not that we receive messages from the outside, or that animals have the sixth sense of sensing something happening before it happens or whatever. It's not that they have the sixth sense that is turned outwards that reaches out to information that is out there somewhere in infinity. It's that they can feel the event getting closer and closer to them as it works its way up the layers of all of their constitutive parts. And so they can feel in their cells, quote unquote, or in their bones, they can feel it. Well, and again, like language just basically contains these truths as sayings, like I feel it in my bones, and that is absolutely correct. That is your inside, your inner kind of reality or state updates itself simultaneously to the outer state, and so you can feel something happening as it is getting closer and closer to your level of this cognitive kind of skin or boundary, where you are in that eternal present moment that you can't escape, that is no longer escapable, that is no longer bendable. And so what's also interesting here with this kind of system now is that, so you have a bidirectional causality system, which isn't going from one to the other. It's that you are in the middle of it. Every time you're in the middle of causality. And when you act on the outside, it is just a proxy for changing your inner state or manipulating your inner state. And it can go both ways. Like, it doesn't have to be via the outer interface, which is what's interesting, which is why there are certain yogis or people that say that you first have to manifest something within you or whatever. And it's not that one is better than the other, going through, acting on the outside versus inside. It's that it's just people have to be more and more know what they're comfortable with. But there are instances where manipulating your inside is better than changing something on the outside, and vice versa. And that's the growing kind of wisdom that humans should acquire gradually. For instance, if you're locked inside a prison, it's maybe better to work on the inside, because ultimately there's not much you can do on the outside. But if you're out in the open, then maybe it's better to go for the outside. Like, for instance, if you're hungry, it may be better to go and get a fruit, which shifts your inner state and updates your inner state in a certain way, giving yourself that kind of permission by interacting with the outside, which is just interacting with your own, manipulating your own inside. But you could do it directly, but it's just that it's just not very intuitive or practical, or it doesn't work as well. It's not as intuitive. So another thing that's really interesting is the longer the retroaction loop, the higher you can modulate it, the more you can modulate it. So for instance, when you have a very short one that goes like this, you're like, for instance, imagine if you want to slap someone, like there's certain moments, like you understand that there's very little you can do in canceling that that impulse or that reaction or that action. It's a very short feedback loop. But when you have projects that are like in the years ahead, for instance, you want to build a house and you give yourself a 5-year kind of timeline. And so you throw a very long loop here, which goes back to you in your outer reality. Obviously, it doesn't go all the way to galaxies and stuff, but these are all like, they're planetary kind of events. So like here, I would have to like zoom in really, and this would represent like maybe a day, and this would represent like 5 years on the planet. And, so you have these retroactive loops which shift your inner and your outer reality simultaneously. But what I mean to say is, in these very long feedback loops, you have the opportunity to modulate them as they get closer to your reality. And the same here. You have the opportunity to modulate them with shorter feedback loops that sort of mingle or mix with the ones that you gave before, as they join that same thing. So say that 5 years ago you wanted to build a house with white bricks. And so that intention, that thought was initiated from your cognitive skin or cognitive central boundary there, which isn't your skin. It's just a picture. Like it's this arbitrary demarcation that is at the center between 0 and infinity, basically. And when I mean life, it can also be humans. And you could even say that like there are these structures that are going to have a cognitive skin that is going to be created once you form a global collective organism, right? So before life arranges itself into a human, then there is no cognitive skin or barrier that you have as a human to experience an eternal present where certain events happen and modulate your inside and your outside simultaneously. But the planet eventually will also have its own cognitive skin and will experience events that will work their way up from humans all the way to the planet, shifting its state and also going from infinity towards the planet. So, and the whole idea is basically that's almost like molecules also becoming at the center of this, because planet and molecules are kind of linked. And so the idea is that this cognitive skin just grows to envelop, more and more of reality until everything is in unity again. And the difference between inner and outer reality basically fades, and that's when the universe sort of becomes back into oneness. So where was I going with this? Yes. So you initiate this thought of I want white bricks, and it goes and modulates your inside reality to reflect that kind of shift that you're going to experience on the outside. But then mid-course you change, finally I want black bricks on my house. And so your initial intention here at some point is going to be modified by the new decision or thought that you made. And so that's why it's really magical to be in this reality, because since we have the concept of time, we have the possibility to shift or change or modulate these what happens basically as it is being created. So imagine if you were here, this is like an image, you're standing on a cliff and there's like a big mountain here, and you emit a sound, like for instance, ah, and that sound comes here and reverberates and then comes back to you, right? That's the kind of feedback loop image. And imagine if you emitted the sound ah, and then mid-course you could go there, fly there, and correct that and modulate it so that it becomes an O or an U or an I or something else as it's going towards that boundary and coming back to you. And so what you experience is not your initial impulse or vibration, but something a bit different, which is like the mix or marriage between these kinds of different sounds. And that's what's really magical, because imagine like sound travels at a certain speed, but imagine raising that in frequencies. The feedback loop is extremely short. It happens like this is 330 meters per second, but if this were in the gigahertz, it would be almost instantly. And so when you're not in embodiment, when you're in the realm of spirit, the astral plane or whatever, these feedback loops are extremely quick, because whatever you think, boom, you experience immediately. Whereas what's magical with our reality is that we have the possibility to emit these thoughts and intentions that have very long feedback loops, and that take a longer time to manifest and materialize on the inside, manipulating your inner reality, which is going to work, which is working its way up towards your present moment and descending down from infinity. And ultimately, when I'm showing these feedback loops as being a circle, actually what you are always bathing in 0 and infinity. That is the substrate that you reside in eternally. And so anytime you have any thoughts, they start from these two. It's like you initiate them from those points, and then they work their way up or down towards your present moment. And it's just that depending where in linear time you place that intention, then the working its way up or working its way down takes more or less time. So for instance, again, if you want to jump out of the way of a car, the speed at which this gets updated is extremely quick. If you want to build a house, the speed at which this gets updated may be a little longer, and vice versa, like descending from infinity towards your reality. But that's all. You're always bathing in this field of nothing and everything, which exists everywhere. Which exists everywhere simultaneously, and it's just the relative time when you get to experience this that makes this work its way up faster or slower, and update your inner state or your perceived eternal present moment in a certain way. What else can I say? Let's see. And so, that's one of the biggest problems in our present level of consciousness, is that since from our present moment, humans, they emit tons and tons of intentions all the time, continuously, sometimes contradicting each other. They all sort of mingle, and then they can't understand, on the one hand, what their experience is in the present moment when these different thoughts sort of intermingle and create a kind of a monster, a Frankenstein experience. So, that's like the sweet and sour kind of thing. Like, imagine if you have thoughts about your partner that you love them, and at the same time, sometimes that you hate them, and that is going to create very, very weird, subtle, and strange experiences and feelings where, there is this love, but then there isn't, and then, and it's just... the idea obviously is not to stop having any thoughts and just trying to be only in pure love, but to start to know how to play with this. Just like when you are in an orchestra and you emit these vibrations, you're learning to play with harmony. You're learning to play with the chorus effect of having that slight little a difference in the pitch of the different notes, which creates this richness. And that's the whole idea for the human experience, I guess, is to learn how to play with this mechanism and modulating these events. And when they're saying like that, for instance, the universe, first of all, like you always get what you want, like always, except that since what you want is 20 different wants that intermingle and then create this very unique kind of experience when it reaches your cognitive skin or eternal present moment. And at that point, you have no idea. Like it's imagine if you were cooking mushrooms, then cooking aubergines, then cooking, chocolate cookies and whatever. And all of that you're cooking it separately. But then the universe, because you don't understand how it gets mixed up, kind of mixes it all up, and then you're forced to eat this cookie with mushroom sauce and aubergines, and you're like, wow, this is disgusting. What the hell is this? But that's because you're not yet in control over like this amalgamation kind of process where different thoughts that are very similar or intentions that are similar coalesce or are contradictory, and then you're forced to eat them. And that's the whole learning process. It's like this opportunity to untangle what you've asked for, understand that you've asked for it if you experience it, and then try to make better choices next time. And again, sometimes it's better to just stick with manipulating your inside, but sometimes it's better to go with the outside. And I mean, it's a whole dual process. Like learning to control your inside reverberates on your outer reality, and learning to control your outer reality reverberates on your inner reality. And you're just zeroing in on self-actualizing to the point where you've mastered, quote unquote, the human experience of being this creator at this level of reality. I think that's about it. It was already complex enough, but again, like just understand that the simultaneous nature of this, and imagine if, so life is at the start, but imagine if planets, stars, galaxies, galactic clusters, universe, and multiverse also have a cognitive skin of their own, and their evolution, their capability of evolving their cognitive skin, so to speak, depends on your own evolution. So it's the same as your own body. Like, for instance, when we were very basic pluricellular organisms, the scope of which the scope of events and things that we could experience. So imagine if like you're just like a bundle of several cells here, like a very like an initial pluricellular organism. The number of potential states that you can be in is still rather limited. Once you are a human, your number of potential states is much, much wider, because it includes all of those states plus everything else. Like, for instance, this pluricellular organism, it cannot dance. Hence, that is a state that it can never reach, because it couldn't think of the concept, or that's just not one of the events or things that is available to it. But a human can dance. But then think of a planet Earth, for instance, which includes all of the little humans inside of it. How many states does it have potentially available to it? Potential alternate states of all of its inner kind of reality, that state. So, and that's huge. And all of the events work their way up from zero towards humans, and then manifest as a planetary experience. And then you have, events that descend from the infinity into this planet in a higher dimension. So it isn't like it's experiencing cosmic events, it's experiencing events from like a more ethereal kind of plane, or five dimensions, 6 dimensions, 6D. I don't even know at that point, but you get the gist of it. And so it's all about enlarging the potential states that are available to you in that eternal present moment, via these kind of feedback loops that are simultaneous from infinity towards your level, or from zero working their way upward towards your level of eternal present or perception. And eventually, when you are the entire universe, then zero and infinity sort of become one again, fused, and they represent, all of the states that you have simultaneously, and you're back to, consciousness kind of dissolves in this infinity zero, and it can start over for fun. So I hope this was interesting. I hope it painted a kind of alternate picture to this, and made it more precise as to how this kind of works, this inner outer reality, the relationship between the two, and gave you a different look on causality, and the fact that it cannot be that in that kind of way. It also illustrates this idea of this image of everything becoming like entering into focus simultaneously. This idea that was explaining that time is not linear, and everything sort of upgrades itself, like the focus effect of a camera. Like all of this evolves simultaneously this way, in that direction. It becomes more and more sophisticated, and the more inner states the human can reach, the more interstates the planet can reach, and stars and galaxies and all that stuff. And the more it can manipulate and affect the inside state of the molecules, the inside state of the atoms, the inside state of the subparticles, and so on. And the same here, and the same, at all levels. So, ultimately, like it's like this focus effect of a camera where, it's everything becomes sharper simultaneously, and not one part of it becoming sharper and not another part. So again, don't hesitate to leave a comment, subscribe, like, share, and talk to you in the next video. Bye.